If you're surrounded by scrambled to-do lists and forgotten habits, you might be thinking that other people have better willpower or memories than you do. But here's what's really happening. Every time you open your planner, your brain is trying to remember not just what you need to do, but how you're supposed to use your planner in the first place. Complex routines require mental bandwidth that we don't always have. And when we inevitably can't remember our own system, we blame ourselves instead of blaming the system design. I spent years cycling through planner after planner, convinced I was just bad at consistency. Then I started using a simple tool that completely changed everything. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a command center, a condensed guide to your most important routines that slots right into any notebook and puts your entire planning routine on autopilot. All you have to do is show up. What a command center is essentially a recipe for how you are going to get through your planning system on the daily, weekly, monthly level, whatever. It is literally a recipe card for your planning routine. So you wouldn't try to bake a cake from memory every single time, right? You use a recipe, and your planning routine deserves the same treatment. There are a bunch of command center examples I have used in the past. I have several of them here with me we're going to go through, but first, this works because it removes decision fatigue from the equation. So when you sit down to plan, you're not wasting mental energy figuring out where to start or what comes next. You just follow the steps, which leaves more brain power for the actual planning work. More importantly, it eliminates the shame spiral that happens when we can't remember our own systems. So instead of thinking, I'm terrible at planning, you can rest easy knowing you can trust your command center or your various, flowcharts or whatever you're using to catch you when you fall off. It makes getting back on the horse without memory or willpower effortless, even on your most scattered days. So now let's talk about how to build your personal command center. This is step one. And what you want to do is you want to copy down what your planning system needs to be maintained. And then this is going to become your routine. If you don't have a good grasp on your system yet, that's okay. You can still do this process, but I do recommend going and creating a simple system that you like as a good first step. If you want a free way to do that, I have a 5-day, 5-step process to build your own planning system, so you can grab that at the link below or the QR code on screen. Okay, let's work out what our routines are before we create our command center. So grab a blank notebook because we're going to brainstorm. Start by thinking about what you actually do when your planning system maintenance is going well. Do you do a weekly reset? What are the steps of that? Do you have a monthly plan over turnover? Do you have a monthly planner turnover? What are those steps? Just write it out in a list. So what do you do when planning is going well? For me, I like a daily routine and I like a weekly routine. I don't really have strong monthly routines at this point, and I'm okay with that. This is going well for me. Also, please just ignore the fact that I straight up spilled coffee on this while I was writing it. It's just one of those days, For the purposes of this video, I'm really just going to focus on my weekly. But you can see that I have more than one that I could do for this process. We're just going to focus on one for now, but you can do this process for as many routines as you have. Also, I want to do it for my weekly because I tend to cram everything possible into my weekly review. I try to review the previous week, document my schedule, update trackers, set appointments, migrate tasks, brain dump, Eisenhower matrix, set up weekly spreads, do a what worked, what didn't work exercise, journal on how I felt. I just literally always try to cram things in to that weekly spread. So when I am documenting everything I'm doing for my weekly routine, everything I want to do based on the system I have set up, I can already see that this is kind of a lot, and a lot of it is kind of vague. So the next step is going to be to revise and rewrite. You want to remove anything that's nice to have or unnecessary. You want to ask yourself things like what can be refined, changed, combined. For me, for example, reviewing last week and migrating my tasks are both things I do really in support of my brain dump. So these can be sort of combined with my brain dump. Review last week can be combined into the brain dump. I don't really need to write out migrate tasks or review last week when I know that those two things are going to happen naturally as a result of my brain dump process. So I just want to write brain dump, right? I just want to keep that bullet. I'm going to go ahead and put a star next to it to keep it. Another question you want to ask yourself is there anything I'm forgetting? Personally, I always forget to check my upcoming calendar before I prioritize my tasks. So I'm going to go ahead and write check calendar, because that definitely needs to be on here. And then I'm going to call some other things. So documenting time tracking, I don't really need to do that. I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. Setting up appointments, that's also kind of covered in schedule, right? Schedule down here, and checking my calendar, so I can leave that off. Updating trackers, I don't really care about this. I don't really care about my trackers. They're nice to do. They're fun to do, but they're not an urgent thing that I need to do. or an important thing. I do like to set up my weekly spread. I don't care about doing a what worked, what didn't work exercise. You want to cull this down and essentially make it as simple but as usable as possible. So the key is making your routine so explicit that you could hand it to a stranger and then they could execute it perfectly, and so simple that they could follow it with one hand tied behind their back. So then my list becomes, I want to brain dump and check my calendar before I brain dump. I want to Eisenhower matrix everything out. I want to schedule tasks and appointments, add delegation tasks to my meeting documents. Everything I delegate, I need to talk to my directs about, so that needs to go into my documents for meetings with them. I want to pull priorities and schedule those priorities, and I also want to set up Monday's list. And this is a pretty solid and simple reflection of the weekly routine that I want to have. So now that we have done this process, refined it down into a weekly routine, I'm going to show you how to use it in your planner. Speaking of creating systems that work on autopilot, I want to talk about Framer, who are kindly sponsoring today's video. If you don't know, Framer is a no-code website builder that lets you create and manage professional websites without any design or coding skills. What I love about it is how it embodies this exact same philosophy, reducing friction so you can actually maintain what you set up. They recently launched on-page editing, which is basically a command center for your website. Instead of trying to remember where everything lives in complicated backends and dashboards, you can just click an edit button and update your site content directly on the live page. This is perfect for anyone who's ever abandoned a website because maintaining it feels too complicated. You can fix typos, update text, swap an image, all without diving into design tools or trying to remember your way around a canvas. Framer removes that decision fatigue we just talked about. You're not wasting mental energy trying to figure out how to make changes, you just click where you want to edit and type. Everything syncs automatically, so there's no version control nightmare to manage. Your website becomes something you can maintain consistently instead of letting updates pile up until the whole thing feels overwhelming. If you want to build a website that's as easy to maintain as it is to create, head to the link in my description to try Framer for free and get 25% off your first 3 months. Thanks again to Framer for sponsoring this video. Now back to making your command center stick. The most important part of a command center is that it is visible. When things are out of sight, they are out of mind, which makes where you put your command center absolutely critical. So there's no way I'm just leaving it in this random notebook. I have to actually put it somewhere that I'm gonna use it. And there are a couple ways that you can do that. So for a while, what I was doing was I was writing out command centers or lists or things I needed to reference a lot in the beginning of a notebook. So for example, this is one of many flowcharts I've made on the Getting Things Done method. I had intended to use it in this little Hobonichi day free, so I plugged it in at the beginning of the year at this page, and then I went about my life and I planned and I planned and I planned. But even though I was like only a few pages on from this flowchart, I was finding that I was not using it at all. So you may build these into like the front or the back of your notebook, and if that works for you, great. But for me, even the act of flipping back to the template when I was somewhere else in the notebook was too much friction, and pretty soon I fell out of love with the notebook and completely abandoned Getting Things Done altogether. And then I couldn't take this with me because it was hard printed into the notebook. So this is when I switched to paper clipping my command centers. I'll show you one example. I do some monthly health tracking in my Pocket notebook, or rather Passport Travelers Company notebook. And I keep my monthly tracker command center, which you might also call a key. I paper clip it into the monthly spread directly on the spread. This is not like in the front of my planner somewhere. It's not in the back. It's just directly on the spread where I'm going to be using it. And then in future months, like when we inevitably get to like December, I will move this actual sticky note. I will take the paper clip off and I will paper clip it right here on December. So this is a traveling command center that goes with me to each spread I need it on so that I can always have this to reference. And on previous months, then I don't have it. It will no longer be on July. This is a really good tactic because it's always where you need it to be. So the command center is right in the spread you need to use it. There's no out of sight, out of mind. It is just in sight, in your mind, and it helps keep it ultra visible. Here are a couple of other examples where I did that. This is yet another Getting Things Done project. This is a list of exercises to go through from a workshop called Power Moves that I was doing. It's my good friend Simi's workshop. I'll leave a link down in the description box below if you want to check it out. But essentially, I paperclip to the front of this planner and I can move it around when I do things like set up future Power Move sprints. I've also used this for things like daily highlights and weekly reflection questions. Obviously, this is a previous edition of a planning style that I was working on, but you can see how all throughout this book, I'm paper clipping in systems. I'm using sheets that can be removed and moved and adjusted wherever I have them. But for things that are a little bit more granular, you might want to try something different because paper clipping and repaper clipping is going to get pretty tedious pretty fast. It's okay for me on a monthly level, but on a daily or a weekly level, I just find it a little bit much. So this is why my favorite method is actually the bookmark method. Ta-da! What you want to do is you want to grab an index card. It can be a small one, like a normal size one like this, or you can get those larger ones if you have like a larger or more complex routine, and then just write out your routine here, and then this becomes your command center. You can essentially just plug it in to your page and then close it, and it acts as a bookmark. So it's doing double duty here. It's both being a record of your routine that is going to be always visible whenever you need it, and it's saving your page. Two birds, one stone. I like an index card method too because you can write one routine on the front, you can write one routine on the back, or maybe your routine connects all the way to the back. That's kind of useful too. And then what I do with things like this is I will take a pencil and I'll check things off as I go. And then what I can do is I can just erase the pencil for next time, and then boom, it's shiny, it's clean, it's beautiful. Eventually, things like this will get worn out, but that's okay because you want to be reassessing and reevaluating your routines pretty regularly anyway. So if you find this gets worn out, kind of gets dirty, kind of gets gross, do this process again and then figure out what your routine really should be now and rewrite the sticky note or rewrite the index card. And that way you are always keeping your routine fresh, which is great, and it's always front and center so you never lose track of it. Another way to do this is to attach sticky notes to whatever existing bookmark you also have. So this is a pencil board I have that doubles as a straight edge for me in my planner. And so it would actually be very functional if I put my weekly routine on one side, daily routine on the other side, or you could do like a high energy routine on one side, a low energy routine on the other side. And then this sort of like acts as your bookmark and does the same essential thing that an index card would do. It's just with a sticky note and with like any existing bookmark that you already like or anything like me that you're using as a straight edge. Multi-purpose tools. We love a multi-purpose tool. If your system is fairly complex, you can definitely have multiple command centers. I definitely have stuff like this, stuff for a daily routine. Although my daily routine is pretty automatic by now, I don't really need a command center to remember how to do it. But you can see I have stuff in different contexts. So I have certain command centers in certain books on certain spreads. This will live with me on like a daily or weekly level. This goes into my planner every single day. You want to put your command centers where you will actually use them so they are actually visible, so they are actually useful to you. If it helps to have all of your command centers on one central thing, on one central bookmark, just get one of these, add a bunch of sticky notes to it. Grab a pencil board, tape or write a bunch of stuff on it, and then that's your like big command center of all the routines and all the things you have to do. But if you're like me, you probably want to put them on the spreads you're actually going to be using them. And there are tons of specific situations for which you may want to use a command center, like your weekly tracking, your monthly tracking, your routines, or even flow charts for how things are supposed to work. All of these are really good use cases. And once you have them in your life, it's going to make planning so much easier because that way you're not sitting down at your desk wondering, how the heck do I go from 0 to a fully planned week right now when I can't even remember what the first step of my routine is? Your command centers are going to really help you out for that. The goal isn't to never forget your planning routine. The goal is to build a system that works even when your memory fails you, because it will. And that's completely normal and human. Give this a try for just 1 week and see how much mental energy you get back when you're not constantly trying to remember how your own system works. If you want a little more help with that system itself, you might want to check out my video outlining a life admin book. I will leave that video right here on the screen. As always, thank you so much for watching, for being subscribed, for being awesome. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.